This guy came all the way from United States to Nigeria to preach against Jesus Christ. But when he got here, he eventually gave his life to Christ. And today, he's here to tell his story to the world. This is his story.
My name is Lamons Runner. I'm 35 years old. I'm from Coatesville, Pennsylvania. I came to Nigeria hoping to become a king and to preach against Jesus Christ. One of the first things I had in mind that I was going to do when I came to Nigeria was dethrone a king. I was going to challenge the African king and dethrone him.
Do you know what a king in Nigeria looks like?
Yeah, I watched African movies, so I had a picture of what a king would look like from what Nollywood.
Oh my goodness, this guy's been seeing Chiwe Talagu in our Nollywood movies. Bro, I can't believe you left America, you came down to Nigeria just to preach against Jesus Christ. What was your plan?
My plan was to come to Africa, any country in Africa that I chose to go to at the time. My plan was to come and tell Africans to return to their traditional ways.
Why?
Because I believed, and there's facts to support, that Africans have been colonized by Western society and Europeans. So we weren't there to know if Jesus Christ actually existed. We were enslaved and given religion. And so I believe that it was to take us away from our true power as Africans. So I came to Africa and I ended up here in Nigeria to preach against Jesus Christ and religion and to tell Africans to return to their traditional ways.
When you got to Nigeria, what was your initial plan? Your step-by-step process of how you were going to achieve this?
I didn't have a step-by-step process.
Okay, what was some of the things you had in mind you were going to do if you come to Nigeria?
Okay, one of the first things I had in mind that I was going to do when I came to Nigeria was dethrone a king. I had it in my mind that I was going to stand before a king and I was going to dethrone the king. I was going to challenge the African king and dethrone him. And
do you know what a king in Nigeria looks like?
Yeah.
You did not know until you came here.
I watched African movies. So I had a picture of what a king would look like from what Nollywood.
Oh my goodness, this guy's been seeing Chiwe Talagu in our Nollywood movies. And he felt that, okay, once he comes to Nigeria, he's going to dethrone a king.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. So now you've come to Nigeria. Have you seen the reality of what a king in Nigeria looks like?
Yes.
Do you think you can dethrone one?
No.
Okay, wow, that's interesting. So what other thing did you have in mind you were going to do? Dethrone a king, what next?
I had in mind to come here and to destroy religious statues such as statues of Mother Mary, nativity scenes, statues of Jesus Christ, and burn crosses.
Wow, are you serious?
Yeah.
And you think you were going to do this single-handedly?
Well, I thought that I would build a following because I was a Black American here in Africa, and I thought that I would gain enough popularity that I would gain followers that would support me.
Wow. What else did you have in mind you were going to do?
I wanted to become a king. I wanted to preach against Jesus Christ. I wanted to tell Africans to return back to their traditional ways. I wanted to start business in Nigeria, buy land, buy houses, do import export. I had plans of becoming a multimillionaire by coming to Africa.
So how has it been like?
Well, I'm still working on those plans as far as becoming a multimillionaire, but the Lord is leading me, is showing me that I'm supposed to be doing ministry.
Okay, so the story of this young man is that he came to Nigeria to preach against Jesus. But when he got here, he was surprised by the things he saw, and eventually he gave his life to Christ. Now, we would like to know what's actually led you to make that decision that you want to come to Africa. I mean, what were those things you experienced that actually fueled your decision? And I also want to know, at what point did you change your mind and give your life to Christ? So let's start from the point where you experienced certain things that made you to make that decision of coming to Nigeria.
Okay. In the United States, I experienced a lot of bad things in my life. A lot of violence, a lot of abuse. a lot of failures in my life. I only made it to the ninth grade, and I dropped out because I kept fighting, and I ended up accumulating criminal charges in the United States, which would also hinder me from finding a good job and being successful the normal way that most people are successful. So I had to become an entrepreneur. I had to figure out how to become an entrepreneur because of my criminal background. I experienced a lot of violence towards myself, like from other people, just getting beat by 20 plus people numerous times in the street.
Wow, are you serious?
Yes.
You versus 20 people?
Yes.
Is that a normal thing in the United States?
It's a normal thing.
Were you part of a gang?
No, I was not part of a gang, but a gang was in my area, and I wasn't intimidated by them, and that's why they targeted me.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's crazy.
Every job that I ever had in the United States, they found a reason to fire me. I was just struck with unfortunateness and bad luck everywhere that I turned. So it just didn't make me feel like God loved me, or that God was on my side, or it was easy for me to believe that there wasn't a God in my reality.
Wow. So I'm curious to know, your family, what role did they play? Were you so stubborn that they did not want to be party of your lifestyle?
Thank you. Like I said, I didn't meet my father till I was 9, so he doesn't really have much to do with my upbringing. My mother was the black sheep in the family. Her siblings hated her, so it's natural for them to hate me as well, and they hated my siblings as well. My grandmother and my aunts, they cursed me. I had this personality as a kid that I wanted to be an adult sooner than I was the age, and my family saw that, and they took any opportunity that they could to teach me that a child is supposed to stay in a child's place. Children are to be seen and not heard. And they also kept on repeating this phrase to me throughout my whole childhood, that my mouth is the problem, that my mouth is going to get me in a lot of trouble.
There's something you mentioned earlier, that your mom was a black sheep. What did you mean by that? What were some things your mom did that made her family to hit on her in a way that it also went on to you?
I don't know what my mother did that made her siblings not like her, but I would imagine that it's something like, you know how when you're younger and maybe coming up and you have this sibling rivalry, and maybe your siblings just can't forgive you for something that you did in your younger days. I think that it was something like that. Maybe my mother did something that to one of her siblings that they just could never forgive her for, and it continued up until they were adults.
Wow.
I'm actually convinced that my aunts are responsible for my mother's death, not physically, but because of the way that they treated her. And I actually my wife's mother actually went to the village and talked to a traditionalist about the situation, and he confirmed that they were the ones that my mother through intention.
Wow, I'm so sorry about your experience. So you would say that all these experiences shaped you to believe that God did not mean well for you?
Well, when I learned about the way that I was conceived, the story goes that my father was a drug dealer, and he was selling drugs to a particular person in a house, and my mother was there. And my mother was going through something with my grandmother. She was running away from home, and so she was on her own. She was staying with some people. She was doing drugs. So my father was there selling drugs to them. They were all doing drugs and drinking. When my father stood up, he fell over. And they carried my father into my mother's room, into her bed, and let my father sleep. The story goes that my mother mounted my father while he was sleeping, and my father thought that he was having a wet dream. And by the time my father woke up, he had already did nature's call. and he wasn't happy about it. So he never took responsibility for me, and no one ever made him take responsibility for me. And we have a very rocky relationship, and I do feel like that is a reason why he despises me. So thinking about the way that Jesus Christ was conceived, his immaculate conception, I can actually relate to his story, and it gives me comfort, and it gives me purpose, and it gives me hope that the way that I was conceived is similar to Jesus Christ's story, or I can at least try to find comfort in the way that Jesus Christ was conceived. You know, it's a lot of conflict about Mary being a virgin, and if he was actually Joseph's son and stuff like that. I had similar conflict in my conception story as well.
Oh, wow. So all these things, okay, I can understand why all this fueled your decision and also shaping your perspective to think that Jesus did not really exist like the way people thought he did. Did you stumble upon something that led to this change, even with all these experiences you had?
Do you mean rededicating my life to Christ?
No.
Okay.
I mean, you had to experience all those difficulty, and I'm sure it changed your perspective about Jesus Christ, because growing up you thought he was the God that would give you all you wanted and show you so much love, and you did not think you deserve all the things you had to experience.
Right.
Now, what was that turning point, that particular thing you experienced that made you decide that truly Jesus did not exist?
I had gotten flogged really bad by a gang, and my arm got broke. I was in the hospital for 3 months. It had affected my heart. It